is like little technique things to keep in mind specifically for snare drums. I'll do some more for quads and basses too, but for the most part it all stays the same across every drum. This is mainly talking about approach, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the left-handed traditional too, and some things that I've picked up on and learned. First thing is like when you're playing 8/8, 8/16. Make sure you're activating it from the wrist, and then you're using forearm. You're not using forearm first and doing this whip motion that a lot of you want to do. That's an old technique we used to use at UNA in like 2020. We don't use that anymore. It's all lead with the beat. You lead with this first and then come home. So when you're playing things like stick control and you have that float hand, lead with the beat up, don't do this. Outside of that, make sure these fingers stay wrapped around. They're not like floating off, and they're not doing a whole bunch of this. Stay nice and steady. Also, taps, especially at this height, at 3, need to be activated from the wrist too. Don't use a bunch of pump the arm. That's not going to do anything but slow you down, and it kind of mutes the sound too. Heavy wrist. When you're going into rolls like these, make sure you practice them slow first. That way you have a core understanding of how the roll works. Then when you speed it up, they're going to be a lot more stroked out than if you were just trying to crunch them. That's a buzz roll, not a double stroke that you're sometimes going to want. Buzzes, keep them very open, especially when you only have 3 snare drums. If they're very close, it's going to sound muddled across all 3 of you, so keep it open. Buzzes, I have a bad habit of taking my middle finger off. Keep it on for the buzzes. Shots, don't slam them. A shot is just a normal full stroke, sort of soft. It's not feather tapping, but not slamming notes. It's mediation. Same thing for shots. It's all unanimous. Left hand to rotate. Make sure you're not doing the Mason Jones special and leaning your wrist forward and doing the weird thumb thing. The thumb should, if anything, go up past the forearm. When you're looking at the left hand from here, your forearm leads directly in the thumb. It shouldn't be that far back or that far forward, right in the middle. And then lean your hand back sort of, like that. And you're rotating from there. And still rotate from the wrist, not the arm. We don't want that, we want this. And that's where you get your height from. Double stops are a good way to practice technique with everything I just talked about. Just to make sure both of your hands are doing the exact same thing. Taps. For like this triple beat kind of stuff, don't overplay the accent. It's going to make everything else dirtier. If you're overplaying the accent, it's going to sound like this. What happens when you do that is you're having to activate like more stroke types than what you actually need. You're having that slam accent, and you're having a tap triple beat instead of using the natural rebound. Whereas if you do what I just did and you're playing a little bit with softer hands and you're treating the accent as a full stroke, it's a lot more natural and it'll be cleaner. Same thing with flams. Don't overplay flams. It sounds bad, it's gonna be dirty, and it's hard to like judge where the grace note is. Full stroke. Outside of that, make sure you know how to do meter changes. That kind of stuff. Whatever the case is, make sure you understand the meter and where the notes fall. So like that thing you'll have, that. If you don't know where the meter ends, it's gonna slur. And it's gonna sound really bad because it's gonna be muddled across the line, just like I talked about earlier. Outside of that, right hand, make sure you're closing this gap here. It shouldn't be open because then you're not gonna have that much control. But it is gonna be in the pocket of these fingers and you're just closing the gap on top of it. And it's a lot of backhand heavy stuff for diddles. That gives you more control and you're gonna be able to easier blend in with the line. Whereas if all of you have this open gap, it's gonna be harder to blend. And if you're playing with these fingers, it's gonna be especially harder to blend. Use the back fingers. Outside of that, double beat and double beat type exercises like shuffle beat. Just make sure both notes are coming up to the same height on each hand, because if you're going here and you're playing everything 3 times lower on the left hand, it's going to be especially noticeable. Keep that in mind. And outside of that, just work on your music. Y'all desperately need it at the moment. There's not too much I can do because I'm constantly gone and I have a lot going on at the moment. But take everything I said in terms of technicality and implement it into the music along with the dynamics. I didn't really get to talk about dynamics, but just make sure that everyone is on the same page in what they're playing and how they're playing it and approaching the drum itself. Because if not, it's going to be whack and everything's going to sound like